It is really sad that I didn't have that. And I don't want any other parent to do this alone, ever. And there's the reason why we started this.
Okay. There are some basic tenets of things like you got to stop the money train. You have to, not fight with them. Don't interrogate them. It doesn't help. Better ways to
All
communicate,
right. Hey,
right?
everybody. My guest today, two guests actually, one of which is a second time guest of the Modern Meeting. But these two amazing women recently launched the organization Parents Standing Together. Their mission is to raise awareness about youth gambling related harm, empower parents with the tools and knowledge to recognize and mitigate risk, and provide compassionate peer support to families navigating its impact. The work they are doing is so important. Happy to have them. Linda Uphoff, Kim Freudenberg. Welcome to the Modern Meeting.
Adam Lyons, thank you. Welcome. Thanks for having us.
Yep. Hi, Adam. Super, super excited to meet you for the first time.
Yeah, no, this is a long time coming. I don't know where to begin, but I guess I'll begin where I usually begin every episode. I'm going to start with Linda because Kim, we know your story, but we're definitely still going to refresh the audience on your story. But Linda, do you remember the first time that you realized your son had a problem with gambling?
Ooh. The answer is there wasn't one first time. I think as a parent, when your child is going through something like gambling, the information really, really trickles in. The first instance that I really something struck me as odd was he had asked me for money post graduate. So he had already graduated from college, had a good job, a really good job. And out of the blue, he asked me to borrow 500 bucks. It's a kid who's been a lifelong saver, just really hardworking, worked odd jobs in high school, was very frugal. So asking me for 500 bucks out of the blue, and he was honest. He said it was a bet he lost, the Conor McGregor fight back in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was kind of avoiding reality and just kind of said, Okay, seems odd, but yeah, if you need help, I'll give you help." Right. So kind of glossed over that. And then it starts trickling in slowly and slowly. Suddenly he was renting from us. He wasn't paying rent on time anymore because was post college, moved in with us. So that was odd. Then borrowing money from his brothers, finding out he was borrowing money from his friends. I actually ended up calling one of his friends' dad, and his dad expressed concern. So all of these things were really, really trickling in. And it took a matter of a couple of months to realize um, where we were at. And by that time, there was all the savings were gone, taking money out of 401k, and having a lot of credit card debt. So because I didn't know any of the signs or anything to look for, this was 2020. And there was nothing on gambling out there. You can't Google get up at 2 in the morning and say, is my child gambling in 2020 and see any information. Zero roadmap. And so by the time we really recognized the signs, he was in it pretty deep. So
Mm. Now, what would you say if you had to? I don't know if you know for a fact, but like, what was the age range in which he started and which he ended up, getting help?
Uh, I'm going to back up because I have three sons.
Hmm.
So all of them are big sports fans. They are all college athletes. And we gambled at home. We gambled on sports normally. It was sports betting. It was not me personally, but it was a way my husband really bonded with our kids. There was, the betting on bowl games, Christmas, getting, 100, here's $100. You pick the team that's going to, win them a national championship. Or it was March Madness brackets, which, they're all doing. And so, and fantasy football. So it was just part of the norm in our family. And it was really
Sure.
part of our social bonding and culture. And um, so that's where it started. And so when he was doing sports betting post college, I didn't really think anything of it.
Mm.
So going back and actually he's in recovery now, day at a time.
Hmm.
But now we can really talk about it. And just recently I said, really honestly, when did this start? And he said 2019 football season. And it was the first time he reached out and got a bookie.
Yeah.
And that's
Mm,
when it started. And then by, early 2020, he was struggling.
yeah. Now, Kim, same question. Obviously, for the loyal Modern Meeting listeners, they know, but maybe it's a little reminder, a little refresher. Kurt, shout out to Kurt. He started a little earlier
A
than
little
that.
earlier. Yeah, a little earlier. So Kurt started Cliff Notes version. Kurt started at 11 on video games, buying skins and then taking them to offshore casino sites and gambling with, I don't know, roulette, blackjack, just anything, basically cashing in these skins at like chips, right, in a casino. And he continued that pretty much through middle and high school. And then after that in college, I think he started doing other kind of like crypto casinos, sports betting, I don't know, everything. He was gambling on literally everything. And then we didn't find out that he was even doing any of this till he was about 19. So he did it for 8 years. And we had no idea until, the first kind of time that we noticed was he was pretty much flunking out of his freshman year of college. He was out of state. We kind of knew that he was struggling, didn't seem to be doing well socially, kind of watching his grades, but trying to let him work it out. And then he came home after his freshman year and we said, "What's going on?" And he just said, "I'm gambling." And we didn't
Mm.
even know what that meant. Like, we didn't even know what that meant at the point. And that's kind of when we found out.
Yeah, and which brings me to my next question for both of you. So, when all this kind of, for lack of a better term, like when the shit hit the fan and you were looking for help, what did you obviously you didn't find much, but like did you find anything? And, looking back now, like what was missing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So much. So much was missing. You want to go first?
I know. Yeah. I'm going to go first because I think I was pre you, right? This was like 2020 and there was nothing. Um, I didn't even, Gamanon was out there, but even I went to therapy, tried to talk to somebody. What do I do? And she's like, well, try an Al Anon meeting. I don't know. And I went to Al Anon and that didn't help. I'm like, these are not my people. So I really, really struggled. I did all the wrong things as a parent. I fixed it. I enabled it. I paid off debt. I did everything you are not supposed to do. Um, and then I was just, I don't know, I need to figure this out. So I went back to school. I got my master's in counseling and I figured I did what I normally do. I just intellectualized it. I'm like, I'll try to find it in a book, maybe. What I really found, there's not that much in your counseling program on gambling addiction. I think maybe we spent 2 lectures on it in our addictions course. Um, but what I did find out, I found out I was enabling him. I did learn that through the addiction process. And so I graduated and then I went off to do this in a private practice. So I work with families in youth and young adult gambling and try to get them the information, kind of do intervention and coaching and all the things, a roadmap, of a sorts to get them to the information that I didn't have. And, and then we're doing it a little bit more globally now. So
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. And for me, my son Kurt had had some other mental health issues, some OCD, some, things like this. And I did what I did is I Googled like, okay, I think my son is gambling. How do I get help? And the only thing, and I can't remember how I found it, but I ended up finding a counselor who was really, really amazing. And she was gambling trained, which I think was sort of um lucky that I stumbled on that because I've heard so many other people can't even find or don't even know that. And we got in touch with her and she kind of helped us lay out, what was going on. But we just still really didn't understand. We thought, oh, he has a therapist now, so it's going to be fine because his other things, he got a therapist and that was kind of the end of it. And we didn't really understand. And then as things progressed, like we didn't know to go to Gamanon. We didn't know to get support for ourselves. Like we just thought that was it. Right. And that kind of, played on and off for about a year. And then he was kind of abstinent in that time, but not really in recovery. And then he really started to collapse again. And then I remember just like, I remember exactly where I was sitting in our lunchroom at school, like on my prep period, trying to just like find a quiet place and just Googling like gambling treatment, like rehab for gambling, crying, just sobbing, and just people walking by watching me just sit at this table crying, trying to figure out like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And still didn't find Gam-Anon in all that searching. Still
Yeah.
didn't find
Yeah.
So
I
it's
didn't either. Or the gambling treatment centers. There wasn't anything. My son
nothing.
went to a normal substance treatment
yeah.
center, and he was the only gambler there. And while I think he really got some good psychological help for mental health, he didn't get any gambling help. And we as a family didn't get any gambling help.
Mm,
So, it didn't work really.
yeah. So I think it's so fascinating that both of you both like, Linda, you went back to school to figure it out. Kim, you're doing all the research. What are your sons doing while you guys are doing that? And at any point, like Linda specifically, did he notice that, like, wait, Ma, why are you going back to school? And did you tell him, like, I'm trying to figure out like how to help you?
Oh, that's a really good question. And I don't think I was that direct with it at all. Right.
Yeah.
I think, this was a point in my life where my youngest son was now in college or maybe soon to graduate, middle of college. And I'm like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Right. I got another chapter here.
Mm,
And so I was also looking for my own recovery. And I think school was my recovery, even more
mm,
so than it was for him. So I don't think that ever came out in that way. And I don't even think at the time I thought about that. But what I did do in all of my courses, every time there was a project, gambling was my topic,
mm,
right? Whether it was, okay, create a group support group for gambling. I created a group support group. So everything I did, so I had all this wealth of knowledge around gambling. And then we do a capstone at the end of our program, which is basically um, a dissertation without the research because it's a master's program. And mine was on gambling. And just, it felt so powerful to be telling all these people that were watching my presentation who clinicians that have just graduated, that know nothing about gambling. And
yeah.
everybody's like, really? Like, because I'm telling my story. And it was just a surprise to them and their clinicians. So I don't know. I would get a little off topic there, but
No,
no,
no.
wasn't direct with my son about that.
Yeah.
It's more about me.
Kim, I know obviously you and Kurt, there were several moments where he tried to stop, and so there was some communication there. But yeah, like early on, when you were doing all the research, did he have any, I don't know if I ever asked you guys this when you were on last time, like in the early stages, like pre-GA, was he trying to seek any type of guidance or treatment, or was he trying to figure it out, or he was just kind of in the zone?
No, no. Like when we started seeing the counselor, we started seeing her first, right? Because he wasn't really into it. And then we saw her a couple times. And then she said, well, why don't you try to see if he'll just come to help you? So we said, hey, Kurt, we're trying to learn about this gambling thing that you mentioned. And, can you come into the session also? And so then he saw her a little bit, but like, I think he was just still gambling like that whole summer. And he had this big blow up with his brother that kind of was this whole ordeal. And then we went on a trip to Europe when he was kind of trying to get into a pattern of some kind of recovery. And then he said that threw him off. And then that was just a disaster trip. But we really just for a while just kind of did that. And that was it. And
Mm,
then as it got later, he had that period of abstinence, 7 or 8 months or whatever. And then when he really started to go down the first time, that's when I started trying to be like, basically, we need help without really researching the disease at all. But then once he got into the first treatment center, we had the family group in that. And that's when I first started, and this is over a year since we found out. That was when we first kind of learned like, oh, wait a minute, I see what this is. And, you're a player in it. Right. And then the woman that ran that group, she was like, have you heard of Al-Anon? And I said, yes, I have. And she said, what do you know about it? And I said, well, basically it's a program, I think, where you just go fix yourself and don't worry about the person that's drinking. And she says, kind of, yeah. So there's also one for gambling. So we think you should go to that. So we started to go to that, and then slowly we started to get that information. And then we were like, okay. So then when Kurt was up and down kind of after that, we were super steady with gambling. We never missed. We never missed that Tuesday night meeting. And he'd call and, what are you guys doing? Like, we're at Gamanon. He's like, oh. And so, but he said, as you learned, I couldn't pull it over on you as much anymore because you were getting smarter. Right.
Yes.
And so we just told him, this is what we're doing because, hey, we see that there's a problem and we are doing our part. You do what you're going to do, but we're doing our part. And
Right.
he knew that we were doing that, the whole time, even as he continued kind of that up and down for the next, year-ish.
Yeah. And Linda, you mentioned bailouts, kind of what Kim was just talking about as far as, once parents get any type of education, right? Once they read that yellow book once, similar to my parents, Linda. So, don't feel bad. My parents bailed me out so many times over the 20 years of my gambling. I can't even count how many times financially, just all different ways, all different bailouts. But so did either of you, once you got, once you realized that like bailouts is literally the worst thing we can do, were there any, did you ever give in to a bailout once you found that out?
That's a good question. I would say maybe,
Yeah.
it's, I can't think of a specific one, but I still, it's painful not to
Well,
help your kid, like every bone in your body. And, just going back a little bit, I think we as parents, and this was my experience, before I got educated by, the enabling, I really felt that if I just helped, he was stressed about the money, right? So if I could just ease that stress for him and just get him squared away there, then he has a chance. He's not going to gamble. But, I think as we all say, the money's not the problem, money's the symptom,
mm-mm.
right? And so you're
Mhm.
treating the wrong problem. And once we really got firm and didn't, I think it took a little bit, but once we really, really got firm and he really got the message, he really did get the help. He also, I did find him a really good gambling specialist, therapist a couple years into this.
Mm,
Texas doesn't have very many, and I've got one of the best for him. And I really think that helped. But I think we as parents we didn't have the gammon on. And
sure.
and that was the tough part for us.
And we will be right back. The Modern Meeting is supported by Evive. Evive is a digital application that is meant to be used by anybody at any stage of their gambling activity. Whether you're just starting to wonder if gambling is becoming a problem, you're actively working on changing your relationship with it, or you're in full recovery, Evive meets you wherever you are. Evive is an accelerant for the stages of change, giving you the tools you need exactly when you need them. Evive offers 24/7 access to interactive journaling, urge management tools, financial literacy resources, and a private community where you can connect with others who get it. It's anonymous, completely judgment-free, and built by people with lived experience. And here's the best part. It's totally free. No subscriptions, no hidden costs. Evive is funded by public health initiatives because this kind of support should be accessible to everyone. If you or someone you know is struggling with gambling, download Evive from the App Store or Google Play. It's like having peer support in your pocket, available anytime you need it. Stay in control of your gambling with Evive. And now, back to the episode.
So Kurt, we were pretty lucky that Kurt didn't really get into a bunch of financial trouble, right? Which was, I kind of don't know how. I think he just would get little amounts of money and just gamble it back and forth, just, all day and all night. But so we never really, I don't feel, bailed him out per se, but what I do hear from a lot of other parents, I will tell you, that are a little further in and have been providing these bailouts, like even when they know not to do it, they still sometimes do it, but they make progress. Like, it's so hard. They're like, but this one, and I just couldn't, and I just paid it one more time, or I just gave in to whatever this thing is. And then afterwards they're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. We're like, hey, you're doing the best you can. Like, you're doing what you can do. But just, if we could as parents just like stop and just stop, that would be the best. but it's so hard,
Oh,
so you have to kind of ease into it sometimes, a little bit. But the more that it happens and then the more that it doesn't go well, and then the parent knows like, oh, I really shouldn't be doing this, then they get stronger and able to say like, actually, no, I am actually going to say no this time because I know when I give in, it's hurting my kid. Right.
yeah,
And yeah, good.
and we'll get to the I want to circle back to that moment. If you haven't listened to Kim's episode 53 and 54, where you basically finally got to the point where you called his bluff and you said, "You're going into this rehab, or you can be homeless. We're leaving. You're not coming with us." And he was
Yeah.
threatening to take his own life. And you know, when I think of my parents, when I think of other parents that I have talked to, and I, it's easy for me with no kids to say, listen, if you give them 10 cents, it's not good. Like, the sooner you can cut them off and the sooner you let them hit rock bottom or whatever it is, the sooner they may, because it's not even a guarantee,
Right.
right? It's not even a guarantee that they'll get help. But once again, it's like, to put myself in your shoes, how do you put your kid on the street? How do you make your kid homeless? Like, but I mean,
Yeah.
I
I
know
know.
we've talked about it, Kim, where it's like,
Yeah.
being homeless for a few weeks, would you trade that for, or,
Yeah.
for
The rest of
being
your life.
free from
Yeah.
gambling?
Yeah, sure. It's such a hard thing. And that's why I think, like, where if you can find a residential treatment, which I'm sure we can talk about later, that it's hard to find, but, especially when your kid is young and they don't really have anything else, so at least we were able to afford and find a place to put him. And then he had an option, right? But when we got there, recap the story, he was on board with going because he was so out of control at home and stealing from us constantly and just getting the money no matter how much we tried to lock it down, and just becoming borderline violent with me in the house, and we were like, you need to go now. We can't, you need to go, and you can't stay here. Like, we can't do this. And he's just smoking weed and being violent and gambling. Like, this is just no. Right. So when we got there and we took him there, he was on board the day before and he felt, we felt positive that he was going to go. But then when we got there, boy, he was not having it. And like you said, he was threatening to kill himself. He was threatening to kill us. I thought they were going to call the police. They were like, we're like, where's this going to go? They go, we can call the crisis team in and they can, put him on a suicide hold. And it was just constant. And then finally, the guy that worked there said, you guys, like, you need to pull it together and you need to get calmer and you need to just do it. And so he
Mm,
came back in and, we said, we're leaving in 5 minutes and you can stay or you can live here in the street, but you're not coming home with us. We
right.
can't take you home, because I knew, like, that's a dead end. Then we're going to be right back in the thing again. And like, clearly that was not helping him, and he didn't believe us at first. And then finally he did. And then he relented after another, discussion to finally stay. But I was like, we just can't keep doing this because it was so scary. And like you said, that doesn't mean he could have left and been homeless and then been dead that night. That could
Yeah.
have happened too. There's no guarantee to it, but I knew it was not the path that we were on was not sustainable at that point.
Mm. And now, Linda, hearing that, obviously, I can't speak for you and your son, but, I think your son and me, we were similar in the sense that it never got to those dark places, right? But
Mhm,
we definitely did a ton of lying.
mhm,
And the reason I think that my parents always bailed me out was, number one, I always had a compelling lie. I always pulled at their heartstrings and I always paid them back. So, talk a little bit about, not to keep sitting on bailouts all day, but I think it's so important because this is a core thing for parents. Talk about some of the different bailouts that you ended up giving your son, and like, why did you keep doing it? Like, what were some of the things that he did?
Yeah, my situation was so different than Kim's.
Yeah.
My son was a super compliant person. He never even asked, rarely can I even, that first time he asked me for the $500 for the bet, I really honestly can't remember when he ever asked me for money again. I did it out of my discomfort. Right? I would catch him, I would look at his credit report and I would, download everything. What's going on? We got to get rid of. So I would manage him, right? And
Wow.
I would do that for him and we would figure out a plan and he would have a budget and all that. But he was not one, he was never violent. He was never mean, never aggressive. He was very shamed based, right? And just, felt shitty about it.
Yeah.
So that made it me even want to help him more, I think, right? Because I wasn't angry with him in that way.
Mm.
What really, really saved us is me taking over. I have an MBA in finance. So I was like, we need to take over your finances, right? And he wasn't on board with that for a while. There's where the compliance wasn't great. And that's where I think we missed the boat for a while. But once a parent can, especially if you've got a young person or a young adult, if you can get control of their finances, and it's the first thing I do with clients now is I sit the parents down and said, you're going to lock it down. And you've got to put the friction there. You've got to give them time between wanting to bet and getting the money to got to slow it down. So I have really that once I did that and really manage it, and I still manage his money, I probably will always take care of his money,
Hey,
right?
I mean,
And he wants me to now,
yes. And
Yeah.
so I take that back. So he's nothing like me because he didn't ask for money and I asked for money all the time. So
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna say he maybe it was pulling at my heartstrings in a way.
yeah, like maybe he knew that it was
Right.
coming. And so he just, I mean,
Right.
that would be that he's playing he's that's next level if he had the
May
discipline to not
maybe.
ask you, but
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
knows? But so, we've been talking about this parents staying together thing. Let's hear. I want to know how you guys met. How did this come about? And then just explain to the modern meeting audience, like, what does parents standing together actually do?
So I'll say kind of the origin story because I want to say a couple of things about Linda in there. But
Yeah.
so a bunch of us, Linda was not part of this original way back when. A bunch of us met in Gamanon, a bunch of parents, and then became pretty clear quickly that we had this influx of parents to this meeting, and it was sort of overtaking the meeting a little bit with all of our very sad, broken energy. And so we decided to all kind of start just meeting on Zoom on Saturday morning, just to kind of talk, right? Not an official meeting, no readings, no nothing, but just to talk, not as a replacement for Gamanon. We all kept going to Gamanon, a program I 100% believe in. For what it does, it's really, really good. And then, we did this for a while and like we were starting to all get better, and I was kind of the furthest along at that point. Um, and then, we were like, well, we should get more people. So then we'd get other people we kind of invite in and we find them on Facebook or whatever. And then, they would kind of come and go. And then, we were like, well, more people need this. Like everyone should get to have this amazing meeting. Right. So we started thinking about forming like an organization to kind of get organized around it. And about that time, everybody, shout out Sam, everyone's angel, love Sam, hooked me up with Linda after NCPG and said, hey, you should talk to this lady in Texas. She's kind of doing what you're doing. She has, clients and, she has a, counseling degree, whatever. And so we talked back in like, I don't know, like July, maybe like kind of nearish after NCPG. And we had a good conversation, but then we were like, okay, great. Talk to you later. Like didn't seem like we were exactly on the same page. We didn't really know what we were doing yet. And then, the greatest thing was I felt that we started a Gamanon meeting, some of us, not through the group, in August. And so I was like, oh, let me reach out to Linda, because she's a parent. Let me reach out to her and invite her to this Gamanon meeting, right? So she came to this meeting, first one, right? Is that your first one? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
came to the first
Yeah.
one. And don't cry at this because it's really good. But she came to the meeting and I had talked to her, but no one else had talked to her. They didn't know who she was, So we're at this meeting, and then at the end of the meeting, she shared, and she was like, I was like, this is how I know like I'm gonna love her because she's so genuine. Because she was like near crying, like, oh my God, like I didn't even know that this was here, right? It made me cry. Like I didn't even know that like I did this by myself. Like I went to school, I had nobody, I had no support, and she was like, I had no idea that this existed for all of these people. So then I was like, that's right, get on the team. And then she got on the team, and then thank God, because she's incredible and she's just like me. Like we talk and text about gambling probably more than we should. But so then, we kind of just started getting the group going, filed for our 501c3 and everything. And then really, you said in the beginning, we really want to raise awareness. But we really saw so much need for the support piece And we're like, we got to just start that now, even though we don't know what we're doing, but we have to get a meeting going. We have to get a Facebook group going. We have to get something for all these people that keep finding me or someone else through Facebook or whatever. We need this going. Right. So then we kind of started with the support piece, which, we can talk a little bit later about how that's going, but it's so amazing. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
So, and then, Linda, you can add some more stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I totally, it's bringing back a lot. So I went to, I'm going to back up a little bit because it is Sam who brought us together, and I, I listened to a podcast. Well, actually, I read his USA Today article about a story, and then I listened to him on Christina's podcast, and I was like, oh my God. And my back in 2021, my husband and I thought about we need to do an app because everybody is gambling on their phones. We need to have it on we need to have the app on the phone, the gambling app. And so we had a whiteboard, we'd have notes, we had organized this and we're like, our son should do it. And he was not in the place in time, he was not in recovery, and so it just kind of got put aside. And when I heard Sam's story and Evive's story, I'm like, I have to know this guy. So reached out to him, talked to him, and just really connected. And same thing, he said, oh, you need to meet Kim. She's from the Bay Area. We were from the Bay Area. And yeah, we started talking and she invited me to Gamanon. I very much remember. I still have that email. And it was the first time that I think I really told my story outside of school. In school, I did, right? In our supervision or whatever. But it was the first time I really told my story in 6 years. And I didn't tell my story to my family. I still, it's just not something I ever had the opportunity to share in that way. And I was just always heads down. And this has been a different experience. And in a way, it's very sad. I did kind of cry because it is really sad that I didn't have that. And I don't want any other parent to do this alone, ever. And there's the reason why we started this.
Yeah. I mean, it's awesome. I kind of had like I heard rumblings of this woman, Linda, and then Kim and Linda, because I work for Revive and Sam's always keeping me in the loop with stuff. But yeah, it's just amazing. It's like a combination of like fate, but also just this is such a small space and we all eventually get to know each other. But I mean, yeah, there's going to be a lot of families that are grateful and happy that you two found each other. I think, it's just amazing. Um, so Linda, real quick, take me back to that first meeting. And, when I think of my first meeting, how, I was overcome with emotion. And when I read the yellow book for the first time, I thought it was written for me. I thought I was being punked. You know what I mean? Did you have that same kind of connection, that same like relief, like, oh my God, I'm not alone? Like what was it like in that first Gamanon
Yeah,
meeting?
it was. The difference is I was in a better place,
Mhm.
right? I was coming into this meeting and my son was in recovery.
Mhm.
And so there's a sense of more calm and not that super overwhelming sadness. But part of me was imagining what it would have been like had I been
Yeah,
there 5 years before. I don't think I could
sure.
have kept it together. And just hearing everybody else's story, I was like, yeah, that was me. And I'm
Yeah.
so glad that you have each other. And I have been welcomed into this OG group, their like original group. And it is so heartwarming when you find your people that really understand you. And I think that is as true about Gamanon as it is about GA, AA, or whatever support system you find. But yeah, it was pretty powerful even after being in somewhat recovery.
Yeah. And you mentioned that, you wish you told your story sooner. Are there any reasons that you can think of why you didn't?
Yeah, a lot of shame,
Yeah.
feelings of failure. Like Kim and I talk about this a lot. We're like, we were damn good parents. Like,
Mhm.
my kids had, we They were educated. We went to every single sporting event. They were always supportive. We are a super close family. We love to vacation together. My all three of my boys have lived together in different parts of their lives. We love each other. What happened?
Right.
And what you have to realize as a parent, it has nothing to do with being your parenting. For my son, it was the perfect storm. It was his stage of life, and it was opportunity, and it was the industry's way of making it easy, technology, all of the things that, we talk about a lot of the time. So I almost call it the perfect storm at the perfect time for him.
Hmm.
It had nothing to do with me, but that sense when you're going through it,
Mhm.
it's, where's the blame going to go? And we as parents, we take that on, and it's
Yeah.
it's fair.
Yeah. So when someone goes to parentsstandingtogether.org or they reach out to either of you, what are some of the services that you offer?
Yeah, so I think the first and most important thing that we're doing, and I think it's kind of where our hearts are at, mostly is, people will come in, they'll find us, they'll join the group, and immediately our first thing is like, you got to come to a meeting. You have to come and join the group and talk to us, right? So that's the number one thing. And that has been so amazing. And watching, I mean, just I could I mean, I can't tell you specific stories, right? What stays in the meeting, said in the meeting stays in the meeting. But like people, parents, dads, moms coming in 4 weeks ago, just broken, have been doing this for a year, 4 years, 10 years, 20 years, just broken down. And then getting that support and hearing other people's stories and finding out, like, okay, there are some basic tenets of things like, you got to stop the money train. You have to, not fight with them. Don't interrogate them. It doesn't help. Better ways to communicate, right? And then watching these people literally 4 weeks later just changed, like calmer, confident, happier. Maybe the kid's starting to dabble with recovery, maybe not, but the parent is in the place where they're ready when the kid is ready, and it is so miraculous how fast that can happen with the right tools that we didn't have. We were fumbling around for a year, 2 years, 3 years, not knowing what to do. And one of our missions, Linda likes to say roadmap, like here is how it usually goes. Everyone has a different story and a different journey, but these are kind of the basic tenets of what is more likely to be successful for you and hopefully for your kid. Again, no guarantees. They're their own person, but really getting that support to understand what they're up against, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the first big piece, I think, that is super, super important. Also doing that through the website. Maybe Linda can talk about the blogs because they're so brilliant and I love them.
Yeah, and I want to add, because I think what I really missed was waking up at 2 in the morning and going, "Oh my god, I think my kid's gambling," and typing in, "Is my child gambling?" and getting nothing. Now when they type in, I'm really hoping, "Is my child gambling?" it comes up parentsstandingtogether.org, because we have provided everything on this website to get somebody started. They may not be ready to come to a meeting right away, but they can go out there and they can see the warning signs. They can read a blog on enabling. They can read a blog on financial controls. They don't need to come to a meeting, but it may get them in the door, and it gives them something when they wake up in that panic in the middle of the night or whenever that happens. There's somewhere to go. So that's what we spent hours and days and on that website, and it's really rich. It's not one of these websites you go out to and it points you to something else or it gives you something vague. It's pretty rich and deep,
Oh,
and really proud of
There's
it.
so much to come still. Like we've only been able to publish like 12 of the blogs. We've got like another 30. I mean, we're covering every topic, but like we're so drowning in trying to just stay moving that
mm,
learning how to put up the blog, like we got it from the web designer, we're ready to do it. We just have to sit down and learn it so we can start putting the rest of them. But we have so much information that we've just gathered over months and months and months of talking to actual parents every week and seeing where they're at, what are the situations they need help with, what is that, like some of them, like, oh, this one, oh shoot, none of our kids were married, like we might need one about how to deal, what if there's a spouse in the picture too, that's
mm.
another thing, okay, let's write a blog on that, really getting that information out.
And you two write all the blogs?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I just got to say, it's so funny. I wrote down the parallels, the way you're talking is similar to the way like someone in recovery talks as far as like, what's the first thing you said? Go to a meeting.
Yep.
That's what we
Yep.
say, right? And then, just like just the connection and in 4 weeks, like you said, the parents, they might not, nobody's cured, but like they feel better. And the
Oh,
same
so
thing in
much better.
recovery, right? Whether you slip or not, it's all about like once you get that education and that connection, right? And you know, yeah, it's just great. So
And
when
like
all
we
these
say that
parents
we're on recovery too, right? And that's the thing that
right,
I think we try to help the parents understand is that, a lot of people come in to say Gamanon or another support group, like, well, why do I have to go to a meet? Like, I didn't do this. I'm like, you didn't, but you're still in the system. Like, sorry, it's happening to everyone. You have to have your lane of recovery, and then your gambler has their lane of recovery. And if you're both doing it together, but your own side of the street, but you're moving forward together, you're going to have a better chance of success. Our literature says that in Gamanon. Better chance of success if you're both doing it together.
Yeah. And I'm
wow,
going to add to that because you don't need the gambler to be doing it either right
Right.
away, right? I mean, we
right,
as parents are the catalyst to change. So when our kids see us changing, and I have clients like this, they're coming, right? And I teach them the boundaries, and the pressure starts getting on the kid. And he's like,
yeah,
things are changing. This system isn't working as well anymore. I can't triangulate my parents. I can't,
right,
you know, so once the parents start learning and changing, it's a domino effect. The
Mhm.
kid will get on board in some way,
They're
we
going
hope.
yeah. Like my safety net is shrinking, or why didn't they just yell at me? Why are they being? That's
Mhm.
kind of weird, right? Yeah, no, totally. So when these parents first reach out, or when these parents message you or email you, are there any common threads, like similar stories, similar language? Are there any like are you seeing any like repetitive buzzwords or keywords, or has everything been pretty unique?
a majority of them, or quite a few of them, are 19, 20, 21 year olds. Dropped
Hmm.
out of school, sports betting, gotten into debt, depressed, suicidal, maybe starting drugs, gotten in trouble, right? Like that's kind of the situation. Or the ones that kids are 38, 40, right? Still their kid, right? That they've been like, I've been doing this for 20 years. Like, I can't do this anymore. And then we're like, okay, no, here, let us support and help you. And then they are getting better, right? Because their kids are just in a whole different place. So we kind of have this like young kid, old kid thing, which is, kind of the same, but does have some differences. And I think it's good because the people come in young and then they hear this other parent, like, don't do this for 20 years like I've been doing. Don't do this. Like, do it, stop it
Exactly.
now. And then the parent of the 19-year-old that's maybe like, should I really not pay for his car? Like, and then like, oh, yeah, I need to stop that. Right.
Mm,
So it's mostly like online sports betting stuff. But we've had a bunch of not a bunch, but some card collectors have come in, day trading, like we're starting to get more of those, right? It just kind of runs the gamut of how they're doing it, but it's all like young people, techie, online type stuff, all of
mm.
it.
Now, I saw on the website, talk about some of the warning signs that, when someone just might be surfing the website and they have a suspicion, but they're not ready to reach out to you. What are some of the warning signs that parents should be looking for that could be some red flags that gambling is going on?
Yeah. Uh, Secrecy, first I'm going to say it's a feeling of if things are off.
Mm,
Right? Something's just not quite right. And sometimes you can't put your finger on it because they're just normal young adult things. They're on their phone all the time. Their sleep is weird. My son would fall asleep with the lights on every night with his computer, and I'd wake up at 3 in the morning and see his light on, right? So that was odd. Mood swings, missing money. Money's the big one. Once you see the missing money, there's trouble. Um, just, withdrawn, a lot of withdrawal. And just, if I could tell any parent, it's like, go with your gut. You know your kid. If something feels off, just pay attention, ask questions, have a conversation. And not just assume I think a lot of times, even in college, we assume this is anxiety, depression, and it gets labeled as these other things without really asking the questions of what are they doing? How are they spending their time? What are they doing on their phone? I mean, my son was probably gambling right next to me on the couch on his phone.
Oh, sure.
Right. And
Yeah.
so it's just having these questions, but they're subtle because it feels like normal behavior, normal teenage behavior. But when you put it all together, it paints a bit bigger picture.
Yeah.
I think one of the things really that we're trying to get, like, aside from, like, we've kind of talked about the support pieces that we're trying to get into place, but as far as the awareness pieces, right? I think we're still at a level where parents don't even recognize that that even might be the problem, right? Like, oh, my kid, like, they're kind of being irresponsible with money. Maybe like they've ticked up drug use or weed use. Maybe they're selling things. Like, why are they selling things? They have an intense interest in sports, right? Or whatever is their, common thing. And they don't even know to question that it might be gambling, right? So we tried on our website, and I think, we did a pretty good job. But besides just listing the warning signs, like, we went out to the parents and said, how did this warning sign manifest in your kid? What did it actually look like? Right. And there's a few quotes from parents saying, like, okay, we'd be at family gatherings and he would sneak off to the bathroom because he had a stomach ache. Like, and I thought that was weird. And then I found out that was gambling, and like
Mhm.
Kurt, I say all the time, love the NBA, came home from college, was like spewing facts. We're like, awesome, took him to a game without realizing, like, this is a huge red flag. So we tried to, give some examples of how that might look besides, like, they're being secretive or like
Mm.
they're kind of withdrawing. What did that actually look like in some of our kids?
Yeah.
It's the power of the storytelling that I really think we tried to put into our website.
Mm. Yeah. Anytime someone can read a random story and they could put their name into the story and the same exact thing happened to them, that's so powerful,
Mhm.
both for parents and, people in recovery.
Yep.
A couple more questions. This is kind of a dark question, but it is what it is. I mean, this is part of the journey. What do you tell parents who, because we know the statistics, right? Like, people who enter recovery, 90% of them are going to slip. And it might not just be, it might be someone might be, anyone can slip. What have you told parents with that? Because, like you said, if the parent is also on the recovery track, like the child, and everything's going good and they're happy and they're not ashamed of the story and they've told people, and then all of a sudden, God forbid, their kid slips.
Yeah. Well,
What is your advice to that parent whose kid
I
relapses?
think that that's really about having the parents be educated, right?
Hmm.
Because if you're educated, you realize that that very likely could be a part of the story,
Hmm.
and it's not the whole story, right?
Exactly.
So we talk a lot about, like, if your kid is entering recovery, what kind of systems do you keep in place, right? What guardrails do you keep up? What agreements do you have? How do you talk about it as a family? Right? Because you really want, same thing, even if they're not in recovery, like, the number one goal is you want to keep the communication open with your child, right? As much as you can, even if they're not having it, or they might be, right? You want them, that if something weird comes up, right? Like, yeah, like something you notice is starting to be off, you want to be able to have the relationship with your kid where you can talk about that. And then probably, hopefully, they would be like, yeah, actually, I'm really struggling, right? And then you're
Mm.
like, that's fine, that's part of it. So, relapses or slips, I really see as a great opportunity to be stronger in recovery, right? Because
Totally.
something was wrong. So, like, if you could, we'll hear, like, some parents will be like, well, I thought he was okay. He had 30 days and then, like, he got a weird tax refund and then he gambled it. Like, okay, you just learned now that you got to make sure all money is not directed to him, because as soon as he had it, he's not ready yet to handle that. You've learned now there's another door that needed closed, another hole in the boat that needed plugged up, right? Or like, oh, we thought that his devices were locked down, but he was able to go buy an iPad and then we forgot to put it on there and now he gambled on the iPad. Okay, well, that device needed to be locked down, right? And it's not it's just kind of, like, it might happen. And,
Yeah.
like, it's not something to freak out about. It's just, now, okay, get back up on the horse, because you don't lose the time. You don't lose what you learned. Even when Kurt went to rehab for 30 days and he slipped on day 9 coming out, he still learned something in that process, which served him later.
Mm.
Right. So I think, again, it's just all about educating the parents so that if it happens, they know, kind of how to deal with it, and not to, oh my God, like, no, it's just, okay, let's just, okay, great. Well, boy, that sucks. Boy, I'm really sorry that happened. So how can we move forward from this? And then
Yeah.
Yeah.
hopefully you're still working on that relationships that they're ready to do that. And if they don't, and if they go really far off the rails, then you just hold your boundaries, wait for them to come back.
Mm.
Yeah. And I think when we have the support of others and we're able to we can handle these slips as parents better, right? We have those skills now to weather the storm with our kids. Even with my some of my families that I do one-on-one with, we have family contracts. And I always put in the contract, okay, they're going to slip up, but what if they're honest about it? Is that what are we going to do about that? Is that going to kind of a pass in a way to close the doors? But they were honest, right?
Mm.
Is that's a win. And
Yeah.
so, it's because I remember where I failed earlier on before knowing this with my own son is I got angry when he slipped. And then he was afraid to tell me.
Mm.
That's tough. But when you have the support of other people telling you, "Hey, it's a slip, they're going to be okay. Close the door." You can get through that with your son or daughter without them feeling they can't come to you next time it happens.
Yeah. I don't want to be a negative Nancy, but all I can think about is like how amazing you two are as parents and how amazing my parents were. But like, I'm thinking about that person whose parents aren't, right? Like when you were saying, like, we got to plug the boat, we got to do this, we got to do that. What if it's a 45-year-old guy with parents in their late 70s? They don't have the energy to do that. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So it's just,
Yeah.
man.
I told that to Kurt too when he went into rehab, and a bunch of the other parents that mostly was for drug addiction, and they were a lot older than me. And I told him, I'm like, dude, I ain't doing this at 70. Like, you need to
That's
work
what
it
I'm
out.
saying.
I'm not sitting on the meeting at 70. Like, I'm just not doing it. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, but again, like that's kind of our whole premise, right, is, and I think all of the people that work in the problem gambling space, like, we'd love to put ourselves out of business. Like, we don't need to have this job, right? So if number one, best thing would be get the parents and kids educated, get all the systems and structures in place with the industry and the government and protections and guardrails, get all that handled so kids don't become addicted to gambling, right? Number one. Number two, if they do become addicted to gambling, let's get that support system tighter and better and more accessible, and people know about it, so we can get these kids off the path at 19, 20, 21. They don't need to be 27, 30, 35, 40, 50, right? Let's
38.
shorten that time. Let's shorten that timeline, right? Because so glad that people finally get off, but you could have, what if you had just been able to get off 10 years sooner? Then you
Yeah.
would have had 10 years where you weren't suffering, right?
Yeah.
And everyone's suffering. The gamblers suffering, the parents are suffering, everybody is suffering in this. And let's shorten that timeline. And I really think we can do that, for a lot of people. Again, not for everybody, because everyone has their things, but we can really do that if the support systems are more integrated, better. People know where to go, they know what to do earlier, because we fumbled around for years, and some people fumble around 20 years and not even knowing what to do. Right? We can do that. We can shorten that path.
And you bring up such a good point that, for the last 4 years and change I've been in recovery, I've heard from so many people and read so many places that it's like, the compulsive gambler or the problem gambler, they stop when they're ready to stop. No one can get them to stop. But to your point, if you get these people at a young age and you have these systems, you have these tools, I can't sit here and say that that wouldn't expedite the process, right? Like if instead of me getting $5,000 credit cards and maxing them out when I was 20, if I had something like Parents Standing Together where, my parents got information and I got information, who knows, right? Like you said, I might not have went till I was 38. But it might have been sooner. You never know.
Well, we tell the parents, like, you can't, it's such a tricky line, especially with parents, I feel like, and probably with other loved ones too. But like, you're telling them, like, okay, you are a participant in this system. There are things that you need to do to make this better, but yet you really can't make this better. Like,
Yeah.
you can't, but there are ways that you can make it. We always try to say, like, if your kid is kind of off the rails, right? What can you do to make it less comfortable, right? Because our generation of parents, of like our age with kids, in their early 20s, like we've always wanted to make things great for our kids. Like that's what we did, probably too much, but again, water under the bridge, right? But how can we stop trying to smooth the path for them and let them sit with the uncomfortableness when they blew their money and now they're hungry or they need this? You don't send them $20 more because they're sad because they couldn't go. No, like just don't do that, right? Don't do that, and let them sit in that discomfort, because the more you smooth it, you pay their rent, you let them live with you, you feed them, you do their laundry, you give them money when they need it, you pay their car insurance, whatever, you're just delaying them having to kind of face the music of what's happening. And that's a hard thing to do as a parent. We always say, like, it's super simple, just do it, but like it's not easy. Like it is not easy at all. And we
I don't
never make it like it's easy to them.
I don't think what you just said would fit on a t-shirt, but that needs to go on a t-shirt like the last minute of you talking. I mean, that was so spot on. It was crazy. Last question, ladies. What do you want parents who are watching their kid right now gamble casually, and it's $5 or $10, like it truly isn't a problem on all areas. It does not appear to be a problem. What do you tell those parents, and what should they be looking out for before it becomes a problem? So not necessarily like what are the red flags, but like what is your advice to the parent who says, listen, I get it, I hear it, but my kid doesn't have a problem.
I, I have 3 sons. Two can gamble, for fun, and one can't now, right? So, um, here's the tricky part, because it is such part of, especially young men. It's really a part of their social system. It's the part of their conversations. It is just part of the norm. And I would just say to, and I would just say to parents, just model the behavior, right? Model it in a way that is careful and intentional, and have the conversations with your kids about the risks of gambling and what does that look like, and setting limits, and not getting into this, gambling money versus real money. It's a whole different topic, but it becomes some gambling money is very different in the way we view money, and it's disposable, right? It doesn't have meaning. And it's really having these conversations around money, how much we spend, setting limits, just being aware. And I think modeling as parents what is healthy entertainment. I mean,
Right.
gambling can be a form of entertainment, and for most people, and for some people it's not. And it's just knowing those risks.
Yeah.
I think it's similar to, like if, I mean, my kids didn't really drink or party in high school or anything, but I know a lot of high schoolers do, right? So like if your high schooler was going out and, they're going to go to wherever the party is on Friday, and hopefully they're designating a driver, taking an Uber, at least hopefully that's happening. And you see that and you're kind of monitoring that. But then now they went out on Saturday too. And then now you found like a beer bottle in their room on a Tuesday. And then now on Thursday, they kind of seem like they're slurring, right? You would be like, okay, something's wrong, right? So
Mm.
same thing with gambling is, seeing like if it's escalating, right? And again, it's super hidden. Not saying it's easy, right? But really trying to pay attention to that. And if like, they have your credit card tied to something and it's $5 or $10 and you're probably like, whatever. Like, no, you need to know what that is, right? And then also realizing, and I don't know how you convince people that it's problematic until it's problematic, you know?
Yeah.
But understanding that these people that get into these severe situations where they're arrested or where they're suicidal or they've, spent their 401k or they've, dropped out of school, they didn't start there. They started casually betting with their friends a few dollars, $5, $10, and trying to listen to some of those stories. Like nobody's like full on a problem gambler like on day one. It's a process, and just realizing that it's the gateway. Like the brain is not ready to handle that, and the earlier the exposure starts happening, just it's laying down those pathways in the brain that are just potentially really problematic, and
Yeah.
just being aware of it is just step one.
Yeah. And I want to add a little bit. I mean, you can ask a lot of young people if they gamble, and they will say no. You can ask a lot of young people if they sport bet, And they will say yes. Young people don't identify sports betting with gambling,
Yeah.
right?
Definitely not day trading either, right?
Or
Definitely
Yeah.
not financial.
or Robinhood or prediction markets, whatever
Oh,
you throw out, they're not identifying themselves as gamblers when they're doing some of these activities. And I just think they need to be aware of the risks of these activities are, in a sense, gambling, and they should understand that.
Yeah. It's yeah. Yeah. So so
on that.
much good
So much. That
information
could be a
today.
whole nother episode, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
just don't even
I'm
get me
looking at the
started.
time. I want to keep going, but I know that, our time is up. But I just want to thank you both so much for the work that you're doing. I look forward to, hopefully collaborating with you in the future. Kim, it's almost been a year since we met,
I
and
know. Can you believe it? You better, whenever you guys go do your band thing at NCPG, we better get an invite
oh, of course,
for that. Yeah,
yeah,
we
it's
weren't in the cool
happening.
kids last year, but we're going to go this year to the
Oh
thing. But yeah,
yeah, it's gonna
I
be a
know
whole
it's
new
been
ball
since we've
game,
been at the little speed networking event. I almost didn't go to that either, and I can't even imagine
right?
I almost didn't go, but it was so fabulous. I'm so happy I
Yeah,
went.
it's amazing. But no, so yeah, where can give me all where can people find both of you and Parents Staying Together? Tell me all the websites, all everything.
Yeah, so parentsstandingtogether.org is the
Yep.
website. On there, there's a link to our Facebook group, which is just for parents that are affected, not for the general public. We'll soon be working with eVive to try to open a community space there. That's in the works. And we also have a Facebook page, just kind of for general awareness. We have an Instagram, but I don't yet know how to use Instagram or have any time to figure that out. So that's coming. But we do post a lot on LinkedIn. So we have a Parents Standing Together on LinkedIn, and then me, and then also Linda. We're on LinkedIn. You can find us on there. And if anybody wants to reach out or email, the email is hello@parentsstandingtogether.org, or reach us through LinkedIn. We're really looking to, kind of expand what we're doing, create partnerships. We want to work with treatment centers to help them help their families. We want to work with college campuses, states, high schools, sports clubs, anybody that has parents that need to hear about this. We are up and ready to deliver that information.
I love it. Amazing. Kim, Linda, thank you so much for coming on the Modern Meeting.
We love the Modern Meeting. Are you kidding me? It's awesome. Thank you for having us. All
Oh, awesome. All right, thank you so
right.
much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
All right,
you. Bye.
we'll be right back.